One day
Hi folks, it's Brian, the Repentant Sinner, and for this video I thought I might as well just address one of the bigger issues that I think is worth addressing as far as I'm concerned, which is my own sins. I feel like as someone who's an amateur evangelist, part of what our job is when we evangelize is to give our testimony, and sometimes our testimony is good, and unfortunately sometimes we have to talk about things that are a little bit uncomfortable. In my case, I call myself the repentant sinner for a reason. I have sinned. I consider myself a sinner. And I know a lot of Catholics sometimes will say that in the abstract. And I know we all sin, but some of us have sinned more than others. And I certainly count myself in that category. And so I guess I should start with the one that I kind of regret the most. And so that is, about 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, I was dating a girl. We all didn't know each other very long, maybe about a month or so, and she got pregnant. And I didn't handle the situation very well. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I certainly had the resources to take care of both her and a pregnancy. And I could have, whether we stayed together or were separated, I could have been able to take care of a child. I mean, looking back on it, my decisions were very ignorant, very cowardly, quite a bit of arrogance involved. It was through no fault of the young woman. She was a really nice lady, but she got pregnant, and I didn't handle it very well. Wasn't physically abusive, but I think I was probably psychologically abusive, in the sense of I was very adamant that if she had the child, I would not be around. She wouldn't get a dime from me. I would disappear. I said all sorts of really awful things. Basically, my goal was to get her to have an abortion. And I didn't handle the situation well at all. I was very scared. I thought my life was basically over, and I didn't know much about her. We hadn't known each other for very long, and so I thought this was an appropriate reaction, which it wasn't. My ignorance wasn't something that was in a vacuum. I did ask all of my friends, which is what a lot of you might do if you're in that situation, and I can tell you that for the most part your friends aren't good people to give you advice on this. Pretty much all of my friends but one said, go ahead, get an abortion. That's what you need to do. Don't let this ruin your life. Get the abortion, take care of it. One friend was there, and he had a similar situation. He was confronted with a similar problem, and he went ahead and was considering an abortion as an option. And shortly before that choice was supposed to be made, his girlfriend had a miscarriage, but it had a profound effect on him. And so he was the only one. And he told me, and I'll never forget his words, he said, "You'll regret it. You are absolutely going to regret this." He was the only one I wish I listened to him. My family wasn't that happy about what happened either, and they certainly encouraged me to terminate the pregnancy. And so I essentially browbeat this young woman into agreeing to have an abortion. And I thought I was doing the right thing. I grew up in a very sort of liberal environment in Seattle with secular values. And I was always told that it's a woman's right to choose. It's just a bundle of cells. It doesn't really matter. It's not a viable. It's not a life. And abortion is really just, for all intents and purposes, another form of family planning, or another form of birth control. And that's how I looked at it. I went down with her down to the abortion clinic, And this is where things started to go a little wrong. When we were in the lobby, I filled out the paperwork, I paid the money, and as soon as I paid the money, some security guards ushered me out of the lobby, and they were pretty forceful about it. And I was uncomfortable because I wanted to talk to her, and I wasn't, if I had to be honest, I'm not sure that I would have tried to talk her out of it or change my mind, but I just didn't want to be hurried. And I know now why they were trying to rush me out of there. They didn't want a young couple arguing in the lobby about whether or not to have an abortion. This might have an effect on other people that were there, and they hurried me out of there. They were very forceful about it. I was objecting, and there were two large men shoved me right out the door, and they have a very heavy metal security type door, and when it closed, there was this electronic lock, and I'll never forget the sound of it closing and locking, and it almost sounded like a prison door kind of closing. And that sound struck me somewhere deep, and I realized I had made an error in judgment. But I wasn't willing to do anything other than go along with it, and they told me to come back in a couple hours and pick her up, which I did. But I really felt like I had done something wrong, and she looked pretty beat up, and I felt really bad for her. And we ended up staying together, and it's not that I didn't love her, but I know that a significant portion of my reasoning for wanting to marry her at one point was because of my guilt over the abortion. And we got married, but predictably the marriage ended. It wasn't, we had a lot of things working against us to make that relationship not work out. Having said that, the abortion didn't help. And I know that I had caused her some very serious psychological and emotional pains and turmoil. And those would come out over the years. It would, little inflections, little snide comments. I shouldn't say snide, they were justified. This was not her fault. She was a good person. I think she would have made a great mother. It was really my fault. There isn't really enough ways of saying I'm sorry to make up for something like that. It just is. I think when you as a man sort of press upon the woman in your life that she needs to abort a child, I think you've crossed such a serious line that there's really no going back from it. And so I don't know where she is. We parted ways on friendly terms, but wherever she is, I will always be profoundly sorry for what I did. And I don't put any of the blame on her. I know people might argue, well, she was an adult, she knew what she was doing. That's, as far as I'm concerned, my job was to be supportive in what her decision making was. And now, knowing what I know, to support her in wanting to have that child and wanting to support that life. I helped create it. I needed to be there and be responsible, and I didn't understand that at the time. What I was not really aware of was that I was going to carry this wound for years, and it wasn't something that was real obvious to me. It wasn't something that I was going to know how badly it was going to hit me until many, many years later. And this is something I think that a lot of men don't realize. As a man, I think we think, an abortion is kind of a get out of responsibility card. And I don't think we can appreciate the deep wound that we're creating in ourselves. And if we hurt, she hurts 100 times worse. And so it's one of the reasons why, as I was a card-carrying pro-choice advocate for so many years, I had no idea how wrong I was. This was going to come basically full circle many, many years later when I was well into my 40s and I actually wanted children. Now, of course, having a child in your 40s is fraught with danger. The truth is, the chances of miscarriage are quite high. And so my wife and I, she was pregnant with twin girls. It was very exciting short period of time in that pregnancy. And then we went in for one of the routine ultrasounds, and one of the twin girls' heartbeats wasn't registering. And that's when we found out that one had died and the other one would very likely die as a result, because of the fact that they share so many of the structures during the pregnancy when they're identical twins, that if one dies, it'll most likely take the other one with her. And they gave us this picture, and it was an ultrasound picture, and it was just two little sort of circles, two little angels there, and you can't tell which one's alive and which one's dead. And that's when it really hit me. The wound that I'd been carrying for so long came out, and I thought a lot about the child that I believe was a boy from the first pregnancy, and how I was very willing to throw that child away. And then here I come, and here's now an opportunity to be a father, and I wanted these children so badly. I mean, for selfish reasons, I wanted to be a father. I wanted to watch them grow up. When I found out they were twins, I was all very excited. I thought about how they would dress, and what they'd be like when they went to school, and what kind of sports they would play, and what kind of college they would go to. I mean, your mind wanders into all sorts of wonderful sort of dreams and aspirations for your potential child. And when you realize that this child's going to die, you want it to live so badly. And then I realized that, I had another child, and I'm sure that child wanted to live, but I didn't ever give it a chance. And so what was happening to me at that time was really of my own making. And this wasn't God's fault. This wasn't anybody's fault but my own. These were my own sins that were sort of coming back, and they were visiting me. And I had to very quickly understand what was happening, where I was going to lose myself in a bit of darkness and misery. I was really, truly, for a short period of time, I was really lost. And I had a fork in the road. What saved me was faith. And it was the thing that pushed me over the edge to realize that I needed to come back to church. But I also realized that all my assumptions that had happened before about this idea of pro-choice, which is, we don't say pro-abortion, it's just, it's a woman's right, and it's her body and all this stuff. The truth of the matter is, when you see that ultrasound, you understand. If they had shown me an ultrasound of that child 20 years ago, I think it would have really shocked me. If I had heard the heartbeat 20 years ago, I think it would have changed my mind. I know it would have changed her mind. She wanted to keep the child. It was me. It was all me that wanted the abortion. And so there's a reason why they don't show you those things. There's a reason why they don't let you see that this child has fingers and toes and a face and a heartbeat and a brain and all of the trappings of life. And they don't explain to you the massive tragedy that you're about to undertake. They do it, and they're very matter of fact about it, and then they send you on your way, and you have to live with that wound. Now, I know that there might be some people out there that are listening to this, and they're saying, yeah, but this is going to change my life. If I have a child, it's going to make it hard. And the truth is, if I can't speak to the experience of a young woman, I can only speak to what it's like as a man. I know you're scared. I was scared too, but the truth is, you're feeling something that millions of men have felt over the centuries when they found out that they were going to be responsible for another life. And they all managed to pull through. They all managed to make it work. And a few of us who lacked the confidence in our own abilities to be fathers, to be men, we didn't step up to the plate. We basically shirked our responsibilities and walked away from this life. And then some of us, like me, have the arrogance many years later to go say, well, I'm ready to be a father now. And it's not really how it works. I know that it might seem a bit simplistic because of the economic problems, but the truth is the economic problems are things that you can handle. Every day people are able to handle them. I know that it feels like your life is not going to be your own because you're going to need to give of yourself to a child. But first of all, there's nothing that's going to ever replace that love and that bond. I don't get that. I'm never going to have children. I'm going to be alone. I'm going to have a wonderful stepson, and I have a love and a bond there that's wonderful, and I'm always going to be grateful to my wife for that. But he has his own biological father who's always going to be able to look at that child and know that that's his. And you know, there's a connection there. There's a love there that is really unbreakable. You're going to get that in exchange. In exchange for giving up a little bit of your life, you're going to get so much more out of life because of that love. And I know you're going to say, well, you know, I can't do this and I can't do that, or it's going to affect my work or my education, whatever. People make it work all the time. The truth is, we actually in this country have a problem with time management. People are constantly late to things. They're constantly not able to fulfill deadlines. You're actually much better off being busy, because when you are, every minute becomes more valuable. And when every minute's more valuable, you actually will take the time to get things done. And so if you're there and you're having this problem where you don't know which fork in the road to take, you're young, you feel like this is going to change your life, not for the better, because you got your girlfriend pregnant, I'm here to tell you that if you opt for the abortion and you fall for what is really an awful, well, the secular world has failed you. It has. It's sold you a bill of goods that just don't exist. And I bought that line. I bought that narrative, and I allowed that to allow me to rationalize what I was doing. And I shouldn't have done it. I should have been smarter. I should have been more responsible. I should have opted for life. I'd have had I think I'd have been a good father, and I think I'd have had a great son. I have a great son now. He's my stepson. I think he's a wonderful kid, and he's going to do great. But frankly, when I look at him, I realize how my wife, who had him when she was very young, she made the right choice. You know, I'm sure she was confronted with all of the same issues that I was confronted with, but she opted to choose the responsible course of action. And yeah, it set her back a little bit. It took her longer to get her education. Maybe she didn't take as many vacations as she'd have liked. But now she has a wonderful son to show for it. She's had all these many years of that loving relationship to show for it. And yeah, I didn't have any of that. And that's not anybody's fault but my own. Abortion is really an awful option. I know that some of you guys are thinking about it. You're tempted to do it. And I'm here to tell you that you're going to wound yourself in a way that you'll never understand. They're going to lie to you about what it is really happening. They never will tell you. They'll never show you the ultrasound. They'll never let you hear the heartbeat. They'll never let you see the image of your child. If you do the research on it, which in and of itself can be fairly traumatic, on how they know they have all of the biological parts out of the uterus, you really realize how barbaric. There's simply nothing clinical about this. It's a barbaric procedure. And you know, you see people as they get older, even people who are very pro-choice, who have children, and they'll always give you this line, well, I myself would never have an abortion, because they went one time to the ultrasound and for their child, the child that they wanted, and they saw it, and it had a profound effect on them. And they know that what would be happening if they aborted that child. Now, they're unwilling then to make that extra mental leap and say that really this is taking of a life. But they, on a personal level, they understand it. If you're going to seek help, you're going to need to, or advice, seek it from people who are responsible. Don't seek it from people who are your age, that don't know what they're doing, that don't have the wisdom to guide you appropriately. You talk to somebody who's a little bit older, somebody that's perhaps had children or tried to have children, somebody that has maybe had a child when they were young. Talk to somebody that knows what they're talking about, because if you talk to people who are living the same sort of dynamic that you are, with the same fears and the same concerns about, I'm not going to be able to party, I'm not going to be able to enjoy my life, I'm not going to be able to have this, I'm not going to be able to have that, they're going to convince you to take the easy route. And trust me when I say that it is so profoundly painful. I know that for all intents and purposes, I have children, but they're not here on earth. They're with God, and God is a better father to them than I could ever be. I think about them all the time. I hope and pray that one day I'll be able to humble myself before them and beg for their forgiveness. I want them to know how much that I love them and how much I regret abdicating my role as a father to them. And I can't tell you how much pain you will save yourself if you choose life, if you make the right choice. And so, I can't, it's one of these things where I know it's a very polarizing subject, and I know it upsets people to talk about, but there is real people involved, there's real emotion involved, there's real pain involved. And don't make the mistake that I made. I can repent all I want, but really ultimately the best I'm going to do is one day, hopefully I get called home, and hopefully I don't get judged too harshly for my cowardice. I think God's a loving God. I think God's a merciful God, and I certainly know that I've been judging myself probably a lot harder than God may judge me. But no matter how God judges me, I'll have deserved it, because I really did make the wrong choice. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life repenting that sin. And, I know some people might say, well, you're Catholic and, you have confession and reconciliation and forgiveness and all that. And I've done that. And that's fine. And it was going and being able to confess that was a very big thing. And I really am always going to be forever grateful for the Pope for creating that 1 year where you could go and confess about things like that. But I also know that I'm going to be suffering for those sins, despite the fact that I was forgiven, for the rest of my life, and deservedly so. So when it comes to the pro-life, pro-choice, these are all words. If the person that you care about is pregnant, if you're pregnant, there's a life inside of you that is begging for you to make the right decision. That life deserves every advantage that you can give it. Please make the right choice. Please let that baby live. That baby will return to you the love that you've shown it 1,000-fold, and you will never regret it once the baby is born. But you are in a very, very sensitive time right now, where people are going to whisper to you, and they're going to try to encourage you to make the wrong decision. And they did it, and I fell for it, and I made that decision, and I can't blame them. I can only blame myself. Choose life. You will not regret it.